Okay, so now let's just go over the type of equations that exist whenever a chemical reaction occurs. So there are multiple ways in which we can write that chemical equation. Okay, so let's go over the word equations. Right? These are the simplest form of equations, and you know these type of equations are designed for dummies. सही है बिल्कुल, क्योंकि यहाँ पर ना literally पूरे पूरे words लिखते हैं. Describe the so it basically describes the reaction and names the substances. ठीक है पूरा पूरा. So if you have a reaction in which hydrogen is reacting with oxygen and it's forming water, so you'll write out the whole thing. So you'll write hydrogen plus oxygen and makes water. Okay, so those are just word equations and those are pretty simple. So in this particular example, we have copper sulfate, okay, which is written out copper and sulfate, magnesium reacts with magnesium to form magnesium sulfate and copper. So yeah, and can anyone tell me what sort of reaction is occurring here? In the periodic table, we talked about these sort of reactions. Let's see if any one of you can pick out. So there's copper sulfate, and then there's magnesium. And on the other side, there's magnesium sulfate, and then copper. Aslan, do you have any idea what has happened here? So this is,
Copper and magnesium bonded. Magnesium sulfate.
yeah, but the thing is that exactly, the thing is that magnesium displaced copper from copper sulfate, right? And it instead it kind of like stole sulfate from copper, and it found magnesium sulfate, and then it pushed copper away. Okay, so this is known as a displacement reaction. And if this type of reaction occurs when the when a compound reacts with an element that is more reactive. Okay, so for example, right here, magnesium is more reactive. It's higher up in the reactivity series as compared to copper. That's why it will push copper away from its compound. Okay. Okay, the second type of chemical so these are word equations. Okay. Second type of chemical equations जो होती हैं, these are second type of equations are chemical equations. Sorry. So this shows the whole reaction as symbols. These are the type of equations which you normally use. So copper sulfate reacts with magnesium, forming magnesium sulfate and copper. The fourth type of equations are known as ionic equations. Ionic equations में क्या होता है कि you basically what you do is that you open up each ionic compound, okay, and you split them up into ions. Okay, so how are ionic equations even formed? So let's say we have this reaction going on. Okay? Copper sulfate reacts with magnesium to form magnesium sulfate and copper. Okay. अच्छा, अब can anyone split up copper sulfate for me into its ions? Let's just split them up into ions. Can anyone split them up into ions? Maha.
Cu2 plus.
Okay, so we have Cu2 plus. Okay, and will it be aqueous or will it be solid? It will be aqueous. Okay, all ions जो होते हैं, so copper sulfate is in its aqueous form, so this ion will be aqueous. Okay, so you have to write okay what is the state symbol for this ion. So this is also known as a state symbol, or it is also called as the uh, yeah, it's called the state symbol. ठीक है. अच्छा, उसके बाद copper 2 plus हो गया. Then what next?
SO42 minus.
ठीक है. What will be the state symbol for SO42 minus? Aqueous. ठीक है.
Aqueous.
Yes, aqueous. ठीक है. अच्छा, फिर now magnesium solid है. ठीक है. Would you split it up into ion?
No.
No. ठीक है. It's just solid magnesium. So ये block of magnesium lying around. तो magnesium ऐसे ही लिखा जाएगा. It's not in its ionized form. No ion for magnesium. Mg2 plus नहीं लिखना. Okay. Now let's move on to the product side. यहाँ पर magnesium sulfate है. Okay, so Azlan, please break them down into ions. जल्दी से.
Mg3 plus
ठीक है.
SO2
Anything missing?
minus brackets solid.
Yes, this is very important. You'll see why. And then SO4 2 minus and brackets में aqueous. ठीक है. अच्छा. And then
Plus Cu minus Cu2 plus.
are you sure?
No, nothing. There's nothing.
Yeah. So it's just copper solid. Okay, it's not dissociated into ions. Okay, now we have this chemical equation. You guys can see this. We have this, we have split it up every ionic compound and broken them down into the ions. Now, this next step is to just cancel out the common ions on the product side and the reactant side. Okay, and that's how you form an ionic equation. So, copper 2 plus, aqueous copper 2 plus ions, do you see them on the product side?
No.
No. ठीक है, so यहाँ ये cancel out नहीं होगा. Do you see sulfate?
Yes.
ठीक है, so sulfate aqueous ions are present on the product side as well. So you'll just cancel them out, right? And I'll tell you what these are called in a bit. Magnesium, is it present on the product side?
Yes, but it doesn't cancel
Yes. Why?
because the other one has a 2 plus charge and this one is just magnesium.
Yes, and it also isn't ionized. Okay, so we'll not cancel this out. So nothing else left to cancel out. So what are these ions called, which are just cancelled out, which are just eliminated from the reaction? Azan, what happens when you're eliminated from a game? You become a what? A spectator. Okay, exactly. So these are known as spectator ions. Okay, and because they are eliminated from the whole ionic reaction. So these are known as spectator ions. So now, if you remove sulfate and you write out the whole equation again, this is what you get. This is an ionic equation. Okay. So this is all for ionic equations. Now, I hope you get the concept.
Yeah.
Okay,
How
perfect.
did you? No, never mind.
Okay.
How come on the left copper has a charge, but it doesn't on the right?
Okay, yeah, we will go over this in the next segment, right? So and now that you have an ionic equation, since this is a redox reactions may one species is reduced and the other species is oxidized. Okay, so that means that one of them has to lose electrons and give its electrons to the other one. Okay, and the other one has to gain electrons, right? To be reduced. So if you break this ionic equation further down, okay, so you form an ionic half equation. What is a half equation? Half equation, you basically break the reaction down into two halves. Okay, so you break the reaction down into two halves. And what are those halves called? One half is the reduction half, okay, and the other half is the oxidation half, right? So reduction half में क्या हो रहा होगा? Simply the species that is gaining the electrons or the species which in which the oxidation state is reduced, that is the species getting reduced, right? So that will be going in the reduction half. So can anyone tell me which of these two species, copper and magnesium, is getting reduced and which of them is getting oxidized? Aslan,
Magnesium
magnesium क्या? What magnesium?
plus.
No. But is magnesium getting reduced or is it getting oxidized?
it's getting reduced.
How? Maham, would you like to comment?
Um, is it getting oxidized?
नहीं नहीं, why are you asking me this question? देखो, मैग्नीशियम जो है, इसका चार्ज पहले क्या था? मैग्नीशियम का चार्ज जीरो था यहाँ पर, ठीक है? It gained a 2 plus charge when it, reacted with copper. So so how do you gain a 2 plus charge? Huh? How do you gain a 2 plus charge? You basically lose two electrons. You have to lose those electrons to gain a 2 plus charge. So loss of electrons is oxidation. Okay. So right here, magnesium is oxidized. So magnesium goes from Mg to Mg to Mg2 plus, and it also releases two electrons. That is the oxidation half of our ionic equation. Okay, ionic half equation, right? And similarly, copper, on the other hand, gains those two electrons, and now it's oxidized. Sorry, now it's reduced. So yeah, this is the reduction half, right? So that's all for Ionic half equations. We talked about the types of equations today. So we have word equations, and word equations ke baad, when you write that equation using the chemical symbols, so you form chemical equations. And when you break the chemicals down into individual ions, so you form ionic equations. And then when you break the ionic equations into the reduction half and the oxidation half, so you form the half equations. So these are the types of equations, right? And these are just practice questions. I've uploaded this PDF on the drive as well, so you can just practice them and mark yourself as well, right? And we've already talked about spectator ions. ठीक है, ये सब कुछ हम कर चुके हैं, सही. So that's all for today's class, and I have an exam tomorrow, so I'll be ending the class soon. So if you